How do we be a good role model to our children? And maybe it's not just your children, maybe you're teaching others, or you want to be a great role model to a little niece or a nephew, or just other young adults or young people in your life. Okay, I think most of us long for that. Today's video is all about what are the steps that we need to take. I'm going to offer you 7 tips on being a good role model and how, when we're disempowered, it's almost impossible to be one. So this is a journey of empowerment. If you're new to the channel, welcome. I'm Kim Marie. You can subscribe so you don't miss any of the videos that I share, all in line with helping women to find the empowered woman within them, because we know she's there. We absolutely know she's there. And you know what? If we're parents or we're around young people, we especially want to tap into her, because we know that when we're feeling disempowered, chances are we feel impatient, we feel short-tempered, we feel maybe like, we wonder what we have to offer. And this is all about offering you some basic tips and tools to just keep top of mind whenever you're longing to show up for your kids and for those around you as a great role model, okay? The first one is be you and be real. Now, that can be a tall order, because to be real sometimes might mean that we have to show some vulnerability. We have to show some painful emotions. We don't have to fly off the deep end. When I talk about showing emotions or being able to be with our emotions, it's just that, to be with them, to be real about it, okay? I remember when I first got divorced, my children were quite young, only 6 and not quite 3 yet. And it was such a trying time. It was so challenging for me. And I had a lot of moments where I just wanted to burst into tears. I just wanted to scream. And one day I was with the kids and I was having such a rough day. And I said to them, okay guys, you know what? Mommy needs to scream. Let's go lay down on my bed and we'll all kick and scream together and just let it all out. And so they were kind of like, whatever. And then we started doing it and we screamed until we were laughing hysterically, okay? In that moment, that was a transformational moment for me, because I realized the importance of allowing them to be a part of my experience, not from the place of taking anything out on them or putting anything on them, but from a place of letting them into my world and finding a creative, clever, but not scary outlet so that I could just be real with what I was feeling and be myself and express, right? And they were so little. You don't want to over intellectualize with children. So there was no explaining. It was just, mommy's feeling icky. Let's go scream together. That's all that needs to be said. They get it, right? So that brings me to number 2, which is don't project. We do not want to project our stuff onto the little ones or young people around us. In fact, we don't want to project our stuff onto anyone around us. So if we want to be a good role model, we want to show up owning our stuff. We need to own our crap. We need to own and celebrate our successes and joys. We need to just be there and not expect someone else to celebrate for us or to take care of us or any of that. It's not that we can't ask for help. We need to do that, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in one of the next steps. But the idea is we don't want to project whatever's going on onto someone else with any level of expectations, okay? They are their own person and we are our own person. Having the expectations or having projection of our emotion or our mental state or our shoulds or anything like that is absolutely not going to help them to know and see their own real self, let alone the real you, okay? So number 3, we want to model self-care. Now, along these lines, I have a free report for you. It's around the concept of mistakes we as women constantly make that keep us feeling depleted and isolated and disconnected from who we really are, okay? Self-care is one of the most critical tools, and reading that report is one act of self-care, being able to tune into that. But self-care might look like being very real, right? Being honest. It might look like taking a bath. That was something that was always a saving grace for me. I would put the kids to bed and I would soak in an Epsom salt aromatherapy bath, and it was so cleansing and healing and nourishing for me. Self-care might include the way that we spend time in nature. It might include the way that we nourish our bodies with the food that we take in, but also everything that we ingest, right? Are we spending time around toxic people, or doom scrolling social media, or spending too much time with negative downer type news, right? We need to look at how are we caring for and nurturing ourselves, because when we are nurtured and fueled, we have fuel to give back. But if we're constantly depleted, if the gas tank is empty, we are not going to be able to be there for others, and certainly not be able to be a good role model to anyone around us, right? Okay. Number 4, admit your mistakes and apologize. Be human, with the knowing that we are all fallible. We make mistakes. If we do not model that for our children will struggle. Now, I want to share a quick story, a couple of points from my own life. I remember a time when I was staying with my grandparents, and my grandfather was an alcoholic, and I didn't know it at the time. I was very young. But my sister and I were staying the night there. My grandfather had gone out drinking. I didn't know that at the time. But when he came home, we were still up and we were supposed to be in bed. We were asking for some water or something. And he started yelling at us and chased us back upstairs. "You two, get into bed." And I just had never seen him like that. And it really startled me. And we went to sleep, kind of feeling a little scared. And we got up in the morning, and there he was in the kitchen, making us breakfast, cooking us eggs and bacon and a wonderful spread. And he didn't even acknowledge what had happened the night before. And he was like the perfect grandpa that I always thought of, right? And I remember talking to my father after we had gone home, and I told him what happened. And he said, everybody has a different way of apologizing. And that really stuck with me, because apologies aren't always in words. However, if my grandfather had apologized with words, I would have known that he saw that what he had done was scary and frightening to us, okay? I do think the words are important. Language is generative. So we need to admit, we need to acknowledge, we need to say, I screwed up here, okay? We are not going to be perfect role models. Perfection is a complete fantasy, okay? And I have a demon of perfectionism. Many of us do when we care so deeply about those around us and about doing this deep inner work that we're doing to feel more empowered. But perfectionism can kind of keep us from that empowerment, because we keep protecting ourselves from stepping into new things and taking risks. And I'll do another video on perfectionism another time. But for now, this idea of admitting your mistakes and actually apologizing for when you've done things wrong. My parents also were not very good at apologizing or admitting they were wrong. They would get defensive. They would try to find a way to blame it on someone else or something else. And that's not healthy. It doesn't help a child or a young person, or anyone around you for that matter, feel seen. Right? When you can actually admit that you were wrong about something, or that you screwed up, or you made a mistake, then you allow that fallibility to be part of your existence and the relationships that you're in, okay? So we want to make sure that we own it, name it, admit it, and apologize for it, okay? Number 5, find balance in the process of everything that you're doing. That is going to help you be a great role model. Now, I happen to have an event coming up for the autumn equinox. There's a link in the description. Be sure to click that. It's a totally free event, and it's all about, equinoxes are all about finding balance, and we're going to be looking at that, and you're going to get some cool free tools around finding balance, so be sure to click that link. But this concept of finding balance means that in our lives, if we want to be a great role model, we need to know that they need to know or see us finding balance around fun and work and play and self-care and joy and the capacity to be inner in our lives and outer in our lives, the ability to have that dance. They need to see us doing that dance, right? It can't be this all or none kind of concept. And we really want to model this idea of knowing when to persevere and to keep going and to push ourselves beyond our limits, but knowing when to back off and say, that's enough, right? I don't want to push myself to the brink of pain or unnecessary suffering. We want to find balance in rhythm. What's the rhythm of our day? Rhythm is an amazing tool for children. Oh my goodness, it helps them feel so secure. It helps them feel safe and know that they know what to rely on, right? They have something to rely on because there's a certain rhythm to their day. It's super important. But that's a tool for balance, right? When we have a rhythm, we're able to build in these different aspects of our lives, right? There might be a certain time in the day for this kind of activity and a certain time in the day for that kind of activity. It's a breathing in and a breathing out that we're looking to find balance with in our lives. And that is such a powerful modeling that we can offer, not just for children. I mean, in many ways, you think of role models as being something for adults toward children, but in many ways, like, let's face it, we all probably admire an adult in our lives too, right? We look at something and we go, gosh, I wish I could do that. I wish I had that. That in itself is a role modeling, right? But we aren't trying to be role models to other adults. What we do tend to try or long for is to be role models to young people around us. But the reality is, we want to be the kind of adult that any other adult aspiring to be their best would like to see showing up in their life as well. It gives everybody hope when we can do that, okay? Number 6, and it kind of goes with this idea of finding balance, is to avoid extremes. Now, we are going to go into extremes. And we'll constantly find ourselves in one way, or then when we've found ourselves stuck there, we inevitably swing to the other side. The pendulum swings, right? So it's not so much about like never going there. We're going to go there, but this feeds into all the other things. Are you taking care of yourself? Are you noticing and being conscious of when you're out of balance? Are you being real and being honest? Are you admitting mistakes that you've made when maybe you've gone to an extreme? Are you, correcting yourself and actually changing your ways, right? Too many people in codependent relationships, there's an alcoholic and a partner stays with them forever, no matter how abusive or unkind or unreasonable they are. And there's this process of never owning, never changing, never shifting. So we want to own the extremes that we go to and actually work to find a dance that's more in the middle. We're never going to be static. That's not our goal. Our goal, we actually are dancing extremes, and we're going to visit extremes. But the key is we want to avoid hanging out in extremes. We don't want to just stay at one end of the tightrope that we're dancing, right? Or the other. We want to be dancing it and finding our own middle, our own center. That's where we find true empowerment. And that's when we can find that, we become, by default, a great role model to those around us, okay? And the final one I want to mention, which I've also touched on a little bit here, is communication, okay? Now, I mentioned we do need to ask for help. We need our communication to be clear. When I was growing up, my mother needed help. She was the mother of 5 children, but she did not know how to ask for help. And we cannot expect people to read our minds, right? If we want to be a great role model, we need to communicate in a way that we would want to be communicated, right? We don't want our kids to be thinking they have to guess what we feel any more than we want to guess what they feel, right? We want to communicate with them. We want to clearly ask questions. I have a whole playlist on communication tools that you can check out. So be sure to do that, because there's so many different ways that we forget to use our clear words. Remember, I said language is generative. The way we speak, whether it's through an apology, whether it's through requesting help, whether it's through a declaration of how you're going to show up and how you're going to take care of yourself and setting boundaries for yourself. Communication is so key. And I've also got lots of videos on setting boundaries. So be sure to check those out. So be you and be real. Don't project. Model self-care. Admit your mistakes and apologize. Find balance through fun, rhythm, perseverance. Avoid extremes and communicate clearly. Use effective communication. Those are 7 tips. I hope that they were helpful. Please share in the comments what you think. What do you notice? How does this show up? Do you feel like others around you using any of these tools are a nice role model to you? Someone that you aspire toward? Do you use some of these tools effectively in your own life? Leave your thoughts in the comments, as well as any questions, because I genuinely love hearing from you. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video.